John Jorgensen with you back again in the studio with Michael Schnitzer, and we're continuing our conversation about the process of buying a lot where you can build a new home. If you already own a property where you can build a new home, that's a different process for you. Reach out to us and we'll get you teed up with that. So having said that, Michael, welcome back. We're going to talk about site work next, but right now we're going to chat a little bit about the house component in the transaction. So where we are in this conversation, in case you're just jumping in, is going through the steps, understand the transaction, lender letter, conversation with me or someone on my team. You now have a property under contract and you've come in and met with us. You've gone into a contingent contract with Stanley Martin Custom Homes. We have the feasibility study underway. So we're now doing the soil study and all this stuff, and we may not have the data back yet, but now we got to start talking about the house. So Michael, I'll let you chat about that.
So if we just take a step back, during our initial meeting, we said, let's pick a house that meets your lifestyle. And let's, and from a footprint perspective, let's pick something reasonable. So if you're building on an infill lot, we don't want to pick a house that's 100 feet wide.
Right. And when you say during your initial meeting, we consider phone calls or conference calls meetings.
Same thing, right?
Exactly.
So we have something that may be the right house for you, but now that we're gaining the information, we understand setbacks and height and things of that nature, not just the standard setbacks that we see on the jurisdictional websites.
Right.
Now we can start refining what is it meaning the house. And at that time, we're going to want to have a discussion about, do we want to stay with the current house? Do we want to make some changes to that house, right? So we have the ability to customize, whether it's the front, the inside, expand the house, move walls, whatever we want to do. When I say we, whatever our customer wants to do, we can absolutely do.
Right. And so let me just jump in one quick second. So this is really the very first time in the whole entire transaction that we can have an intelligent conversation about what it is you want to build. And if you think about it for a second, we know now what your budget is from your lender letter. You have a property under contract, albeit with a study period. But if your budget's $1 million and you've just spent $400,000 on a lot, we now know you have $600,000 left for the house and the site work. We don't know what the site development costs are yet. We're going to talk about that in the very next segment. But we can plug some number in there and say, okay, we've got about $450,000 in my scenario to $500,000 for a house. And when we start our conversation with you about house, we can keep that in the back of our mind.
Absolutely. So that we don't pick a house that's already over budget. Right. So high level, we'll have the information from the feasibility. It may affect the house to the extent, depending on where we are, we may need to move to a garage under scenario. Now, certainly we would see some of this with the initial meeting and Google Maps and things of that nature, but we need to get confirmation.
Right.
So this part of the transaction is really, I would say, for customers, is super enjoyable, right? We're really getting into what is it that you want in the house, what excites you. I always like to say that it is really important to have a pretty face on a house. So we want to make sure that we're doing the right thing for the front elevation.
Absolutely.
We do have some nice elevations that are just, I'll call them performa elevations, that are on even the Stanley Martin website. And for many customers, that is absolutely fine. I love to take it up a notch for those customers that want to, and whether we do a traditional, contemporary, I certainly love contemporary, prairie style, arts and crafts, or modern farmhouse. So we can do whatever our customer wants to do. Just one last thing, and when we say this to our customers, it all starts with the first floor. So if we can't get the first floor right, who cares about the second floor, which is then the normal course of action? Who certainly cares about the basement? Can't get the first floor. And we can always put a pretty face on a house. So not that who cares about the elevation, but we got to get the first floor right.
Yeah, that's right. And if you look at Stanley Martin Custom Homes, one of the most amazing things about working with Michael is he executes all of the genres out there very, very well. We have beautiful contemporary plans. We have modern farmhouse. We have traditional. We have arts and crafts. I have never seen another builder's website that has as much diversity as we have on our website. And Michael enjoys all these genres. He particularly, I think contemporary is one of your favorites, but
well, it's just. Yeah, I mean, I like them all. Certain ones resonate more with the population now, but I don't really necessarily have a favorite.
Right.
But certainly, if the customer, depending on their budget and their taste, wants to dream, we can certainly dream with them.
Right.
So high level, it's let's get the plan right. It may be I'm just taking one of the Stanley Martin plans and literally taking a red pen and redlining the plan. It could be I'm bringing out what we call in the industry bumwad, which is like sketch paper, and I'm sketching an elevation or sketching a floor plan or a modification to a floor plan. At that point, we want to make sure we have a plan that's directionally correct. And at that point, once I get alignment with our customer, we will give it to our back office and we will get all the information priced out. So that kind of takes care of the house bucket. Remember we talked about land, house, and site. We know the land. We will know this. We will know the house now because we've picked a house and we're giving it to the back office to get pricing.
Right.
And now we got to tackle the third bucket, which is the site cost.
Right. And we're gonna do that in the next segment. So the kind of the things that are coming to my mind right now is there's a lot of stuff going on at this part of the transaction, and it can become overwhelming. We are going to step you right through it. So the house piece now is really the whole reason why you are going through all these steps. So once we sit down and we start working on the house plan, like Michael said, it could be a simple modification or it could be just a complete, really
redraw,
room by room by room redraw of a plan. So we always want to start with one of our plans and then we customize it. We will absolutely get the plan right. It has never happened, not once, that we have ever worked with a buyer and the buyer said to us, you know what, you just can't get the plan right. It has never happened. So once we sit down with you and we start interviewing you and having conversations with you about what's important to you, just like we know all these things that may come up in the site work, when you start talking about your pets and your kids and how you want to live, outdoor living space, it is going to bring in decades worth of experience that Michael has building homes, and he brings all this
and designing them.
Exactly. So Michael's going to bring things to your transaction that you're going to say, we hear it all the time, boy, I never even thought of that. Well, Michael has. So it's really a great experience. And when you work with Michael through the design phase, it's pretty amazing the way he has the ability to listen to what the buyers want and then take that dream and put pen to paper and make it happen.
And get the information back to them quickly. Remember,
it is quickly.
So this is a multifaceted transaction. So we can't be. We get the information from our customer. We take our time in modifying the plan. No, we have got to move quickly.
Yep.
And I know you brought this up a little bit that we're throwing a lot of information at our customer.
Right.
But we don't want to be the bottleneck, right? So I would prefer to get you more information that perhaps you can digest.
Right.
But I want to get it on your side of the fence. So you will see both John and I have we're very A-type in terms of personality. So we want to get you the information, let you digest it, where others may take many, many days to get you back, or weeks or months. We're going to get it back to you, in lightning speed for you to digest.
Right. So I like telling stories. And I think
We'll start with Once Upon a Time?
Not this one.
Okay.
So years and years and years ago, the Nantucket model, if you think back to that one, we had a buyer come in and we sat down with them and we were going through the design process. And this was early in our partnership. And you worked for about 2 hours and Mr. Buyer leaned back in his chair and he said, Michael, you just did in 2 hours what our architect could not do in 2 years. And that's not the last time I heard that statement. We have met people over the years who are literally working with an architect, trying to design their dream home. And Michael has this uncanny ability to hear what the buyers are asking for and really understand how that translates into space in the home. So when you get to the design phase with Michael, you will absolutely enjoy the process. He's going to get the plan right, and we're going to work very hard to get all the details right as we go through our process. So,
yeah, John, I'd like to bring up one other thing. You talk about people with architects, and certainly they have a very good raison d'etre, but at the same time, we're designing and we're thinking of costs,
right?
And there are so many people that come to us and say, oh, well, we work with this architect, and oh my God, it was, X hundreds of thousands more. And it's just because, there's left brain, right brain thinking, but you've got to be able to think both with the left and the right brain to do design.
You're absolutely right.
Otherwise, we're going to be off target from the beginning.
Yeah, exactly. And Michael has the experience in building and designing where the two really come together from a price perspective at the same time. We do the best we can with that. So
sure.
Is there anything else you can think about that we should add into the kind of the house piece of this transaction at this point?
No, I mean, other than we just want to get alignment, make sure that the design is directionally correct. Remember, the dimensions of the rooms will be plus or minus. So until we actually put it in CAD, which is after the customer removes the contingency,
right?
They are, I mean, certainly the overall house and whatnot are exact dimensions, but
and the pricing's exact.
Well, yeah. So, and that's a good point. So, and I know we're going to talk about site cost here in a second, but the house price is a fixed price.
Right.
There's zero volatility with the house price. And always remember, we're a boutique boutique company within the Stanley Martin umbrella, and we leverage their buying power. So they're building thousands and thousands of houses a year, and we're taking that and bringing that cost structure to our customers. So it's a huge benefit. So the cost or the price that they're going to get, fixed price based on the design or based on the initial house, right? We may not make any changes, will be the best in the industry.
Absolutely. So just to kind of recap, where are we on the process? So you are now in the home design phase, or you're in the process of kind of selecting what options you want off of one of our standard formats, and you need to get all this information to your lender. So just to kind of bring you through it again, I'm going to start kind of a little deeper into the process. I'm not going to go back to the beginning. You start with kind of the lot under contract here going forward. So you have a lot under contract, you have a study period, you've come in and met with us, we've kicked off the feasibility study. We may already have the results of the study back. They may be in process, and it doesn't happen in 24 hours. So we get some.
But we may get rough order of magnitude things so that we can. So if one of our customers is saying, I want this or I want that, we may be able to say, okay, that is going to be an impossibility without even doing real feasibility work.
Exactly. So now we've got the house design and the house price, and this has to go over to your lender. So if you think back a little bit earlier in our process, when you come in and you initially meet with us, we enter into this contingent contract so you can get everything over to your lender. Now we have a house design. We have an exact price on the house that's got lots of detail in it. Now you're getting this over to your lender. Some lenders will just accept it by email. Other lenders want us to do an addendum to insert it into the contract so they can send it all out for the appraisal. So the financing piece and the financing piece and the appraisal component of this transaction is very important. And when Michael says we do things quickly, we do it quickly for a couple reasons. Number one is self-preservation, right? We have a lot of stuff coming at us all the time, and we've got to get it done quickly and back to our prospects so you guys can make decisions. But the second piece of this is you have a timeline on your study period. you've got to get an appraisal. It takes time to get the appraisal. The loan approval has to tie into this whole thing. So we've got to get this detail and this pricing over to you quickly so you can get it to your lender so you can get the appraisal done. We're going to talk about, in the next segment, we're going to chat about site work. But before we wrap this up, I want to just kind of backtrack just a little and talk about finishes and design studio selections and how the different finishes can impact the price, because that affects the appraisal and the price matrix. I think one of the most common places where folks will spend money is in the kitchen.
Well, first it's potentially buying extra space, whether it's attic space or lower levels. But then step two would be...
Exactly. But so finished space in the loft or the attic level or the lower level is easy to understand.
Right.
You know, it's like we're finishing the basement, you've got carpet, drywall, and you know, maybe you're going to do a wet bar or whatever it is. That's pretty easy to get your head around. But I think where folks may have still a hole in the transaction of uncertainty is, how much are we going to spend at the design studio?
Sure.
Right? So we can certainly, if you back up in the process, when we have our initial conversation, you may have mentioned to me during that initial conversation, well, we want high-end appliances. We want a Thermador range. We want a Sub-Zero refrigerator, freezer. And I may have already given you some sort of a high-level estimate to kind of plug into your matrix to budget for appliances. But what we do to bring comfort to you, so one of the things Michael and I work very hard to do with every single one of our buyers is we want to provide an enormous amount of detail along the way, so to avoid unpleasant surprises during construction. So we're putting all this together on the design of the house on a price matrix. At the same time, we're also getting over to the design studio so I can educate you on cabinets, countertops, flooring, plumbing fixtures, and we need to get alignment with what we have at the studio and how much more may you be spending on options than you weren't even realizing at this point. So as part of working on the house, once we get the design right, or once we understand which model you want to build, we get the price matrix configured with the structural options, or if we're doing custom designs, we have to get that custom design pricing from the back office. We then go very quickly to the design studio so we can get alignment on where you want to be on your finish levels, because those need to be baked in to the price matrix. So when the appraisal is completed, it contemplates the level of finishes that you want in the home.
Yeah, and just one other thing with the design studio. So I like to say that customers can pick everything within the four corners of the design studio. Certainly it's great pricing and whatnot, but they're not limited, right? So some customers say, geez, I wish I didn't do, because they can go outside the design studio, right, and pick, right? So we're a Kohler shop, but they could pick Hans Grohe, they can pick, several other, American Standard, Moen, blah, blah, blah. So you're not limited. Right. And so you can either be inside the four corners of the studio, or you could go outside. Certainly going outside just takes more work. Right. We're happy to do it. Yep. So some people will come back. Some of the feedback we'll get is, geez, I wish I would have limited the amount of things I did outside the studio to X and did the balance inside the studio. But we will educate you, but it's your experience. And so we want you to make the right decision. And if you make a decision that we think from a selection standpoint, maybe it's a color or finish, whatever, sometimes we'll use the word out of bounds. Right. So it's your experience, it's your house, and so whatever finishes, whatever you want to pick, you can certainly pick. But if you hear myself or John or someone on my team say you're kind of stepping out of bounds
or outside the box, or
it's a signal that you're way out there with what you're picking. I'll just use this as an example, and this has never happened, but somebody wants to pick a pink roof. You'd be hard pressed not to tell the customer they're way outside the box, right?
Or if you want to build a outdoor kitchen, but you want to build it inside your screened-in porch, that would be
yeah. I mean, you can do certain things like that with but yes, correct, yeah.
Yep. So I think that's a good conversation about what happens with the house piece. So just to close this conversation out, so we're in the feasibility study period. You have a lot under contract. You have a contingent contract. The feasibility study is either underway or completed. We're knee deep in the design of your home and getting the pricing. We're getting alignment on finishes so you can get everything over to your lender. So that's kind of the house piece of this whole conversation.
And John, this is not linear, right?
Right.
So it's not like
linear.
we're stepping
Yeah.
step by step. So we're working and things will fuse together as the paths come together.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm John Jorgensen, sharing time and space with Michael Schnitzer today, talking about the non-lot owner process of buying a lot. We're going to continue the conversation in our next segment about the cost of site work. So this will be a great discussion that you're going to want to hear. We will be back with you shortly.